Audrey Blake navigated the grandeur of the five-star hotel with quiet diligence, her mind focused on the simple cash register duties she needed to complete. The lobby shimmered with decadence, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and vases overflowing with exotic flowers. Guests meandered past in tailored suits and haute couture dresses, their laughter echoing against the opulent backdrop. Audrey, in her modest cashier uniform, felt like a quiet note in a grand symphony. Her morning shift was routine, organizing receipts, courteously smiling at travelers who tossed keys with careless ease, imbibing their privileged airs with silent, practiced grace. Audrey was hardly noticed. She liked it that way, minding her space, managing her affairs in the bustling atmosphere where she didn't quite fit but had learned to navigate. Then, a commotion stirred in the lobby. A well-dressed woman waved a bar of soap in the air, her voice a sharp knife cutting through the affable chatter. It's cheap. Disgusting. A trick. The words sliced into the hotel's reputation, and almost immediately, eyes fell upon Audrey. The woman singled her out with vehemence, accusing her of replacing the expensive hotel soaps with inferior alternatives as an act of sabotage. The crowd's whispers engulfed Audrey, judgments cloaked in hushed tones and furtive glances. Anxious murmurs spread, how someone like Audrey could betray their luxury refuge. The hotel manager, face flushed in embarrassment, was quick to act, demanding Audrey's public apology before escorting her from her post and suspending her indefinitely. Heart pounding with the rhythm of humiliation, she exited the lavish confines, an innocent scapegoat marked by unearned shame, knowing she would have to defend her integrity against shadowed judgment, although without a plan just yet. Audrey Blake sat on the lumpy, worn-out couch of her modest apartment, the shadows of the room wrapping around her like a comforting, yet suffocating, blanket. Her heart was heavy with the memories of the public humiliation she'd endured at the hotel. The whispering judgments had constricted her throat, affecting an emotional paralysis she could not shake. She couldn't eat. The idea of swallowing anything felt impossible. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she was back in that grand lobby, surrounded by suspicion and disdain. Audrey's phone buzzed relentlessly, its screen flashing with messages she couldn't bear to read. Her name was tarnished, whispered about among guests who'd once thought nothing of her existence. As she stared at it, each vibration felt like a direct hit to her already bruised heart, a cruel reminder of how swiftly and mercilessly one wrong accusation could unravel her world. The specter of losing her job loomed, wrapping its chilling tendrils around her future. What little security she had clung to was at the mercy of outsiders who didn't know her, didn't care about her struggles or sacrifices. It felt as though all the years she'd spent clawing her way toward stability were balancing precariously on the edge of a knife. Audrey could almost hear the threads of her fragile circumstance snapping, one by one, leaving her exposed, vulnerable. Memories unwound like a film strip in her mind, each image more poignant than the last. There she was, a radiant pupil in her university's pharmacy program, her eyes bright with ambition and possibility. She excelled in her studies, her mind a sponge hungrily absorbing every lecture, every textbook, hungering for a future she could craft with her own two hands. But in the theater of life, tragedy often sneaks into the wings. Her mother fell gravely ill, and the academic dreams she'd nurtured were hastily shelved. Audrey found herself in a caregiver's role, her life pivoting abruptly from study sessions to hospital visits, pharmacy pursuits to precision pill counting and medical bill strategizing. No regret lingered in her decision. Only its consequences haunted her pathways. Her mother's laughter was back then, a light carving pathways through the dark humdrums of life. But as the nightly shadows tiptoed around the edges of her consciousness, the weight of sacrifice pressed tangibly against her chest. Back then, she took on part-time jobs, balancing appointments with cashier's shifts at grocery stores, selling retail merchandise to earn enough for medicines and stability. The ding of registers became comfortable, like the sound of life, while her dreams simmered gently on the back burner. Working at the hotel was meant to mean something different. It was more than potential stability, it was possibility. The paycheck, though humble, was punctual. the hours standardized. Within its polished walls, she imagined that perhaps, one day, she might find her way back to school, relight her ambitions, or even take her mother on a mini vacation. Simple dreams, small achievements. But that simple ambition now clung worryingly close to disintegration, as she lay immobilized on the couch, feeling like a bug pinned for display. Her landlord wouldn't accept charity, and job offerings wouldn't drown a stain upon a reputation thought honest until thrust into doubt. Every step towards the hotel had felt monumental, each shift a bright ember of hope, marking the resilience and grit it took not to succumb to the easier paths, but to hold fast to her values amidst a mountain of folded linens and continental breakfasts served with mechanically polite grins. Audrey's sense of powerlessness was a damning echo of paths deemed closed, futures lost in the shadows of others' misconceptions. Wrapped in self-reflection and sorrow, the truth lay crystalline. Though she built quiet shields of strength within her soul, the world oft forgot to look beyond tailored judgments. Even in her turmoil, her phone gently buzzed again, this time a text from her childhood best friend, Laura, asking if she was okay, offering a lifeline of friendship Audrey clung to like a buoy in stormy seas. She hadn't talked about the incident much. But her isolation spoke volumes, coding its stress in avenues Audrey couldn't articulate. The irrational guilt she harbored gnawed at her persistently, a crude irony, the assumption of guilt created burden even when innocence prevailed. Her presence at the cash register, her passivity in the hierarchy, now combusted with embarrassment and unjust accusations. Yet Audrey's spirit, while battered, refused complete defeat. She dragged herself to the bathroom, splashing water on her face. The reflection that met her was weary but determined. She couldn't afford to wallow forever. Her mother's care, her rent, were priorities not relinquished easily. There had to be justice, a way to clear her name, reverse the taint of speculative dishonor that cloaked her. She rummaged through her modest belongings, finding an old notebook of notes from the pharmacy courses she'd completed, pages of formulas, chemical symbols, even life sciences notes. It was a reminder of the potential she once grasped, a version of her so unlike the despairing figure weighed down. With tired resolve, she made herself a cup of tea. Each gradual sip felt like a step toward the horizon of possibility, each swallow anchoring a thought on perseverance. Distressed as she was, she reminded herself just how much she had overcome in life, knowing that this, too, would pass. If she couldn't solve it by ordinary means, she'd find a way to set things right, the same intuition told her that had helped craft better days. As night claimed the city outside her window, Audrey remained seated, a world where wealth mingled with whispered deceit awaiting her return. A deep sigh escaped, carrying with it remnants of uncertainty mired in the depths of the fight ahead. Her story wasn't over, all stories had a denouement, and she intended hers to be just. Several restless days passed, unrest threading through Audrey's thoughts like a persistent whispering wind. She paced her small apartment, trying to piece together the events that led to her downfall. Clarity eluded her until a seemingly insignificant detail suddenly crystallized in her mind, a key puzzle piece she'd nearly missed in the fog of panic and shame, the timing of the soap restock. It was a routine procedure, handled by the hotel's housekeeping team well before her shift began, leaving her with no opportunity to tamper with anything. Determined, Audrey seized upon this fresh thread of possibility. She knew she needed to clear her name, to reclaim her integrity. With a resurgence of hope, she decided to approach the hotel management once more, armed with the undeniable truth of her alibi. Despite her trepidation, Audrey dialed the hotel number, the familiar click of her phone loud in the silent room. A few moments later, the hotel manager picked up, his voice sterile and dismissive. Audrey explained her realization, carefully laying out the sequence of events that exonerated her from opportunity. She navigated her words gently, a patient plea underlying her every syllable. However, the manager's response was barely courteous, his tone clipped and weary. "Look, Audrey, hotel policy prohibits reopening closed investigations. I appreciate your concern, but there's nothing more we can do about it. Please understand." The line went dead, an echo of silence heavier than before. Audrey's frustration burned like a fire under her skin. Why was no one willing to listen, to believe her? It was clear to Audrey that formal routes were closed, the pathways sealed by protocol and indifference. Fear would not sway her. It was time for courage, for tangible steps beyond phone calls and politeness. Audrey remembered Max, the kind-hearted security guard she'd grown friendly with during her shifts. Max had always been friendly, often sharing a coffee with her during quieter hours. He was someone she could trust, someone who might be able to help her find the critical proof she needed. The next morning, Audrey donned a plain outfit, her appearance chosen to ensure she blended in seamlessly with the hotel's typical visitor crowd. The lobby's familiar luxury greeted her, a gilded cage from which she was momentarily free. She crossed paths with Max in the employees' corridor, meeting him with a hopeful smile that belied her worry. Max was taken aback to see her, but his friendly demeanor remained unchanged. "Audrey. It's been a while, I heard what happened." "I'm sorry about everything," he said, his sincerity evident. "Max, I need your help," Audrey began, urgency threading her voice. She explained her theory about the soap restock, punctuating her words with the determined cadence of resolve. Max listened carefully, concern and understanding reflected in his eyes. "I can show you the security footage, it's the least I can do," he offered, aware of the significance of his decision. Together, they made their way to the small security office hidden behind an unmarked door. Monitors buzzed softly in the dim room, displaying a grid of views, corridors and ballrooms caught on camera. Max typed a few commands into the system, pulling up time-stamped footage from the morning in question. They scanned through the video, fast-forwarding, until Audrey pointed to a specific moment in the housekeeping area. And there it was, an overlooked anomaly, a junior housekeeper, nervously looking around before tampering with a cart of pristine soap bars, switching them with cheap replacements. "There," Audrey uttered, her finger touching the screen, the evidence unmistakable. Holding the proof in front of her, she felt vindication warring with anger at the deceitful machinations that had ensnared her. Still, the question remained, why had the housekeeper done this? Max continued examining footage from the surrounding hours, tracing the figure back through further scenes. It didn't take much to discover the disgruntled housekeeper's social media outbursts, profile images, selfies, and status updates outlining his dissatisfaction with work conditions, cryptically alluding to schemes against paying guests for the sake of karma and fun. Audrey noted the posts, making sure to save screenshots alongside her video evidence. Armed with this digital arsenal, a mix of determination and nervous energy filled Audrey. The truth was on her side, a soothing antidote for her isolation and fear. For the first time since the incident, hope felt tangible, solid beneath her feet. She embraced Max, gratitude overwhelming her for his assistance, his willingness to listen where others had not. "Thank you, Max, really," Audrey said sincerely, already brainstorming her next move. The evidence clearly exonerated her, but gaining re-entry into the hotel's inner circle was yet another matter, one requiring careful strategy. As Audrey left the hotel, evidence tightly bound in her possession, strategy unspooled before her. The truth was a fragile creature, but alive, well-captured proof demanded recognition. If management wouldn't reconsider on their own, then it was clear she'd need to ensure visibility another way, make transparency unavoidable before those who would listen. A new mission lay unexpectedly at hand, not just to restore her name but to show how resilience fueled the potential for transformation. Steel-willed, she prepared for confrontation not with notions of vengeance but the powerful impetus for deserved justice not yet served. Poised between despair and hope, Audrey stepped forward, fiercely resolved. Her journey to reclaim her dignity, once relinquished to shadows, had just truly begun. The prestigious gala, one of the year's most anticipated events, was in full swing at the hotel. The ballroom was adorned with extravagant florals and crystal chandeliers dripping opulence. Laughter and clinking glasses echoed off the high ceilings, as elegantly dressed guests mingled, oblivious to the vortex of justice about to unfold in their midst. Audrey blended into the opulent throng, her heart a thrumming drumbeat of anxiety and resolve. Her presence at the gala was strictly unofficial, a calculated risk cloaked in anonymity. Her dark evening dress and meticulous poise made her indistinguishable among the attendees who floated through the luxe environment. She knew this was her moment, her chance to expose the truth in a grand, public forum where dismissals were impossible. Clutching a small USB drive containing the incriminating footage and social media documentation, Audrey moved with determined grace towards the front of the room. Her gaze sought out the hotel manager, who navigated the event with practiced charm. The gleam of the hotel's reputation bore evident on his polished confidence, secure in its perceived invulnerability. She took a breath, the path forward clear in her mind. Audrey made her way to an open mic stand, a visible nerve center amidst flowing speeches of platitude and hospitality. Champagne flutes cooled clammy palms, but Audrey pressed forward, tapping the mic to summon attention to her words. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice cut through the melody and chatter, focused and steady. Heads turned, curious murmurs cascading like waves, whispering against acknowledgement. I have some truth to share, a truth buried but vital to this establishment's integrity. The room shifted, guests exchanging questioning looks. They took in Audrey, recognition dawning like slow sunlight. She was the cashier from the lobby debacle, now revisiting the public stage under vastly altered circumstances. As the manager caught sight of Audrey, his initial confusion became alarm, calculating possible repercussions of her appearance. His attempts to interject were cut short by Audrey's unfolding narrative, an unanticipated theatrics garnering undeniable interest. Days ago, I was accused of a falsehood, a deception that threatened my livelihood and identity. Today, I stand before you not only to reclaim my dignity but to reveal the deception truly at hand. Audrey gestured towards a projector screen behind the dais, new and modern, which blinked to life at her nod, a visual aid snapping the guests' attention towards something spectacular. The video footage played, the crisp clarity of the housekeeper's actions undeniable. Whispers swept through the crowd like a restless tide, incredulity painted across expectant faces. Audrey continued, voice unwavering. She highlighted the posts, the masqueraded anger and subsequent sabotage by the trusted insider. The well-documented piece's woven narrative is compelling as it was clear, exonerating her entirely. The manager shuffled uncomfortably, his polished poise temporarily marred by frustration and disbelief. The assembled crowd, once critical, were now murmuring with an intense fervor, turning startled glances from Audrey to the projected images that contradicted their previous assumptions. The disgruntled housekeeper, present among the event staff, paled as hotel management scanned the room, their eyes searching for the perpetrator now displayed for all to see. A visible panic cloaked the housekeeper, an immediate reaction to the blame he once escaped now resolutely laid bare, an awkward presence marooned amidst unraveling reveals. Gasps and outraged whispers filled the elegant space. Guests who initially shunned Audrey now voiced support, disdain redirected towards the true saboteur. Audrey's decision to bring light to the shadows transformed, like a collective realization, flipping tables of social hierarchy, truth dismissed could no longer be denied. Even as the commotion settled, Audrey held the room's attention, not with dramatic flourishes but with a measured narrative punctuated by persistent grace and resolute purpose. The vindicated mosaic she painted left little room for doubt and provided a salient focal point around which skepticism dissolved. The hotel's reputation, once unquestioned, now teetered on the brink. The manager stepped forward, desperation coloring his tones. An impromptu meeting began in hushed tones, hotel executives urgently deliberating the best response as guests waited for resolution. The affair shifted under its own weight, expectations and futures realigned at seams newly exposed. Audrey maintained her composed demeanor, atop a platform rooted not in petty revenge but in the fair pursuit of unclouded justice. She belonged in that room not as a lowly outsider but as someone who valued integrity over deception and believed transformation followed truth. The manager, visibly struggling to repair the hotel's tainted image, returned to the mic. His apology, initially forgotten in the chaos, now unfurled before the crowd as he lauded Audrey's tenacity and the integrity that she exemplified. Glances that once glanced dismissively now bore newfound respect. The tables irrevocably turned. Invited to resume her role within the hotel walls, offered in public acknowledgement was the shared space unfairly denied. Audrey's quiet assuredness, distinct among shaded facades, would not easily be ignored again. Above the resonance of her own vindication, Audrey glimpsed a broader horizon, a foray into sectors of accountability long unchallenged. Her head held high, the once quiet space she occupied now proudly resonant with the silence justice wrought. The day's encounters unfurled testimonies, once leaned despairingly toward futures unclear, now paved by strength forged singularly from determined grace. Even as the tale unfurled in images and dialogue meant to anchor where allegiance forged anew, Audrey embraced the narrative witness steadfastly as one deserving triumph over trials unearthed in luxury's intertwined realms. Thus empowered, she stood prepared to walk forward, grounded in integrity and newfound respect. The aftermath of the gala was a crescendo of accountability and transformation, all eyes drawn to the revelation that had unfolded. Audrey stood at the epicenter of this whirlpool, a figure of quiet persistence turned symbol of integrity. The hotel management, now acutely aware of their roles in the missteps that led to her unjust treatment, acted swiftly. The following morning, Audrey found a message waiting for her on her phone, a formal invitation to a meeting with the hotel's director of operations. The letter was polite, almost deferential, acknowledging the necessity to rectify wrongs and proposing to discuss her future at the hotel. Audrey read it twice, noting the currents of sincerity layered within the corporate politeness. As Audrey returned to the hotel for the meeting, the tension she had once felt was replaced by a newfound determination. Walking through the grand entrance, this time she felt the weight of respect rather than judgment settle upon her shoulders. Staff who had watched her earlier plight with muted sympathy or indifference now nodded respectfully, their prior skepticism replaced by visible recognition of her resilience. In the plush confines of the director's office, Audrey was welcomed warmly, the atmosphere almost reverent. The director, a composed woman of efficiency and grace, extended her sincerest apologies, explicitly recognizing the profound injustice Audrey had suffered. "We deeply regret not recognizing the truth earlier, and we're immensely grateful for your courage in bringing the facts to light. It's people like you we value deeply in our organization," she began, her words sincere, her eyes meeting Audrey's with genuine acknowledgement. The formal apology was accompanied not just by words but by action. The offer of reinstatement came not only with back pay for the days wrongfully suspended but with a promotion to head cashier. Her title, previously a mere position she humbly occupied, now carried the weight of authority and respect she had rightfully earned. The offer of a merit-based scholarship to resume her pharmacy studies was also laid on the table, acknowledging Audrey's past aspirations and recognizing their intersection with her potential. Audrey accepted, feeling a shift within, the palpable reward of integrity and resilience meeting the fortification of future paths. Gratitude mingled with relief in her heart as she imagined a future now bright with possibilities. She felt the merest shiver of disbelief at the turn her life had taken but allowed herself to embrace it, knowing she had earned every portion. The housekeeper who had orchestrated the original debacle was not afforded such grace. Firm measures had been enacted swiftly, termination followed by reparative procedures to address the misdeeds and fallout incurred. It was a cautionary tale for the rest of the staff, the unfolding of justice a necessary equalizer amidst hierarchical imbalance. In the days following, Audrey returned to her role at the cash register, this time embracing her duties from a place of empowerment rather than necessity. Her presence cleared corridors of their previous judgment, and her interactions with guests took on an air of quiet confidence. The staff's perception of her had evolved to a shared respect, acknowledging the transformative events her courage had invoked. Beyond professional circles, the gala incident had gathered narrative momentum, shared in local papers and industry blogs. Audrey's transformation from scapegoat to heroine was discussed with admiration, her name synonymous now with perseverance and truth, a quiet eruption casting ripples beyond initial echoes. As days turned into weeks, the scholarship opportunity coalesced into plans for her academic revival. Audrey reached out to her former professors, reigniting connections that had dimmed over time yet retained threads of possibility. Eyes wide open to paths both rediscovered and redefined, she grasped at magic held within moments seized, not withdrawn. Her mother, ever her heart's steady pulse, listened proudly as Audrey recounted unfolding chapters of restored dignity and regained dreams. Their struggles, tangible yet underscored by unwavering resolve, were shared victories, the taste of triumph yet imbued with genuine humility. A month later, she stood poised at the hotel entrance, ready for a new chapter she actively composed. Invitations she hadn't fully dared to envisage now awaited her acceptance, doors opened both in professional measures and personal validation. Her modest apartment mirrored Audrey's internal growth, its simplicity warmed by insights gained and omnipresent possibility. Her steady resilience emanated without pause, the quiet whisper of redemption woven into its walls. At the hotel, guests who once cast doubt now approached with genuine warmth, conversations peppered with respect interlaced with regret. Audrey's integrity acquired space alongside vibrant tales sown in trust. The truth, once subsumed in shadows, cast vivid light upon shared engagements. Audrey walked through the bustling lobby, each step defined not by the echoes of dismissal but by awaiting warmth clothed in the room's grand narrative, a juxtaposition between personal and collective truth. As she exited the hotel one evening, head lifted high against the clear sky painted with dusk-infused hues, she took a deep breath. The quiet cashier, the one they all judged, was no longer invisible. Her journey, a tapestry woven of trial and triumph, spoke to those born of necessity's grace coiled within life's refined chaos. Finally at peace, Audrey continued toward paths newly forged. Each moment its own story of rebirth, renewal, and recovery, a celebration of integrity against which greener pastures unfolded, ever rooted in truth's expansive reach.